Welcome to today's edition of the Statler Financial Radio Show. Your financial security is our business. Have a question for the team? Call today, 863-877-1188. That's 863-877-1188.
Welcome to the Statler Financial Radio Show with President and founder of Statler Financial Services, Philip Statler. I'm Stephanie Griffin. Philip has over 2 decades of experience in the financial industry. He specializes in retirement planning, tax services, and investment management. If you would like help organizing your wealth for retirement, give Philip a call at 863-877-1188. That number again is 863-877-1188. Let's get into the show. Philip, you ready to go on this different kind of segment we have?
Yeah, this is going to be a little bit, a lot of times we save this for the end of the show,
Yes.
but I guess we're going to flip it a little bit and start out with some questions today. That's going to be interesting.
That will be interesting. We're going to do our mailbag segment right now. We call it the Statler Financial Mailbag, and we get questions each week about all things retirement. And we're going to go ahead and get started with our first question today. This is from Larry in Avon Park. I just inherited my mother's traditional IRA. I know the rules have changed recently on these, and I'm not sure what my options are. I don't need the money right now, so I'd prefer to let it grow. What do I need to know about the 10-year rule I keep hearing about? Philip.
That's a good question, Larry, because you do need to prepare. And let me just kind of lay the groundwork, right? So if you're a named beneficiary and you're not a spouse, then you have to liquidate that IRA within 10 years. And so you've got some options, right? And if your mom was taking a RMD already, required minimum distribution, then you have to continue taking a required minimum distribution every year. That obviously won't be a large number, but you do have to take at least a little bit out every year if she was already taking her required minimum distribution. So let me give you some pros and cons about waiting until the end. Yes, we want it to grow, but remember that eventually you have to take it all out and pay tax on it. And so sometimes we want to start looking at what tax bracket are you in now? What tax bracket are you going to be in 10 years? That may be an unknown and maybe a big unknown. And so as we look ahead, maybe it makes more sense to take a bigger amount out than what you originally anticipated. We don't want to get to the end of 10 years and now all of a sudden our $100,000 IRA has grown into a $300,000 or $400,000 IRA, and now we got to lump all that into 1 year. Larry, what's going to happen is you're going to end up in the 24 to 32%, maybe even a 35% tax bracket. And that won't be fun. And so it really does depend. And we do this. I have a couple clients now that are dealing with inherited IRAs. And so one's younger. And so we are massaging the numbers to determine what years we need to take out more than in other years. And we've put together a game plan now that says, okay, if you want, you can retire early because you're going to have to take this money out anyway. And so we've put together a plan for him that says, okay, here's how we're going to take out those inherited IRAs over the next 10 years. It does take planning. I would not kick the can till the 10th year or the 9th year to take it, just because of the growth, and it's going to put you in a much higher tax bracket. So let's get together and plan it. And maybe that'll make more sense for you.
I was going to say this might be a good time for Larry or anybody who has questions about things like that. They sound a little complicated. It might be a good time to call you up. I think, Philip, definitely give him a call. Let me give you the number again, 863-877-1188. That's 863-877-1188. Statler Financial Services. And Kate from Sebring asked, my husband and I are financially comfortable, but our best friends are not. We love traveling with them, but we know they can't afford the kinds of trips that we like to take. Is it okay to offer to pay for their travel, or will that just make things awkward? That's a crazy question. I've never thought about paying for somebody else, but that's great that they can afford to do that.
Yeah, and here's the deal, Stephanie. I'm not a psychiatrist here, so it's like I'm not a counselor. I'm not sure how to answer that question. To be honest with you, as I look at that and listen, I think it's going to depend on your relationship, right? It's going to depend on your relationship. Um, how good of friends? How long have you been friends? I know I have a friend that I've been friend with forever, like since college.
Mhm.
So it's a long time. And, if he offered to pay for me to go on a trip, I'd be a little uncomfortable
Sure.
with that.
Yeah.
Um, and so I think you have to look at it from that standpoint and say, how would you feel? Right?
Right. Good
Flip it.
point.
How would you feel if you really couldn't go on a trip, but they offered to pay for you to go? Maybe a once in a great while, that might be okay. But I
Well,
would think more than once every couple years would maybe be a little awkward for sure.
sure.
Um,
Or maybe pay for
have
one thing.
yeah, maybe just help offset some of the burden. Don't
Sure.
don't don't pay the whole trip, but maybe cover the hotel, or if you're flying somewhere, just buy the tickets type thing. So, but I think it's going to be a discussion with them to make sure you don't hurt their feelings, that they don't feel taken back. There's just a lot that's really just a loaded question across the board, Stephanie.
A lot of depends there. Depends on a lot of different things. You're listening to the Statler Financial Radio Show with founder and president of Statler Financial, Philip Statler. I'm Stephanie Griffin, and you could give Philip a call at Statler Financial and talk to him about how to turn your retirement savings into a plan. 863 877 1188. 863 877 1188. And if you're just now tuning in, we are doing our mailbag questions from you, the listener. Mike from Lake Placid has a great question. I'm 68-year-old widower, and I've recently met someone. We're considering getting married, but I have a significant assets and adult children, and she has her own financial life. What kind of financial conversation should we be having before getting married at this stage of life?
Well, I have a lot of clients that are in that boat, and you just need to have that conversation of how you want things arranged. I can give you different scenarios that folks have used. One of the more common things is, we have a joint checking account that each person puts money into every month, and that pays their common bills.
Right.
And if they're doing anything outside of that, then they pay for it themselves out of their money. I would definitely suggest, though, that you have each of you have a trust set up, so that, because you definitely want to keep your assets separate, other than that one joint account that you're paying joint bills out of. And it'll take some ebb and flow to get used to it. And there, I'm sure there'll be some uncomfortable situations that arise, but I think that's probably a starting point, um, to start with, so that your family doesn't feel threatened, because that happens a lot, and just kind of walk through it and take it day by day.
Yeah, I'm sure the kids could have, would they probably have a lot of questions about things as well. So let's go to our next question. Jeff from Sebring says, I'm thinking about using some of my retirement funds to invest in a private business, a friend's startup. It feels more exciting than the stock market, and the potential returns are huge. What are the risks of moving from traditional investments to private equity like this?
Well, one concern I have is that we're taking it out of our retirement funds, which to me means it's coming out of your IRA. So that IRA, I would never ever recommend you use the IRA as the investment vehicle into a business. There's too many rules, too many regulations, and it's easy to fail. And then all of a sudden you have a disqualifying event, and all that money becomes taxable, penalties, and all kinds of stuff. So that means you're going to have to take the money out of your IRA, pay taxes on it, If it's a big chunk, well, that means more taxes you're going to have to pay, and then make the investment into the business. So the biggest drawback to me is the taxes you're going to have to pay up front to get the money out to make the investment. The other thing is you need to realize is that it may look like a good idea on paper. It may sound great. And it may be a great opportunity. But you have to realize how many small businesses fail in the first year and how many more fail in the first 5 years. And remember, this is your retirement money that I'm assuming you ultimately are going to need down the road. And so I would caution you very, very highly to think twice about it. I know it sounds exciting to be a part of a startup and get going, but there's a lot of risk there too. And you need to make sure that what you're risking, you could afford to lose it all and still be okay. There's a lot in there to unpack. I really want to look more at the business kind of performers are there. There's just a lot of things you have to look at, and it's a really big different from investing in the stock market to investing in a private business like that.
Right. Well, a lot of great insight, Philip. We have one more question. This is from Brian in Lake Placid. I inherited an IRA from my father-in-law a few months ago, but I have no idea where to start it or what to do with it, and where do I start is his question. So yeah, that's kind of a loaded question too, I think.
It is, and we're kind of running out of time, but here quickly, it's going to be an inherited IRA. Again, based on age, I'm going to make the assumption that he may be taking his required minimum distribution, which means at a minimum, you're going to have to take your RMD, required minimum distribution, out every year. That'll be based on your age as a single life expectancy, not a joint life, but a single life expectancy. So that means you have to take out a little bit more than if it was joint life. That's the starting point. And then to me, it's running the analysis of taxes. When's the best time to take money out? When we look at it. But at the end of 10 years, that account has to be empty, nothing left in it. And so that's the key expiration date, if you will. We have to have everything out of it within 10 years. And so to me, it's just a planning option, right? And that really fits into what we do, though, here at Statler Financial, and that's plan. We want to help folks plan the retirement they always dreamed of. And there's some key areas that people need to look at. Risk is the first one. Taxes is the second one, because get it, folks, taxes do not go away when you retire. They become a bigger part of the planning process. And then having an income plan in place. Those are the things that we look at when we put together our core retirement design. Give us a call. Let us help you start that planning process. Our number here is 863-877-1188. That's 863-877-1188. I'd love to spend some time with you to make sure you're on the right path to that retirement you always dreamed of.
All right. Appreciate that, Philip. And the Statler Financial Radio Show will be right back. Turn your plans of yesterday into yes today. Don't wait another day for a routine checkup of your retirement plans. Call Statler Financial Services, 863-285-3815. That's 863-285-3815.
Many people don't plan for long-term care until they have to. But long-term care isn't just nursing homes. It can include in-home care, assisted living, or ongoing support over time, and those costs often aren't covered by Medicare. That's why Statler Financial Services helps clients plan ahead, looking at how long-term care fits into a broader retirement strategy. Planning ahead is not about expecting the worst. It's about understanding your options. Call Philip Statler at Statler Financial Services today at 863-877-1188. Philip and his team offer guidance to clarify your choices and cost before you need to act, no matter what life brings. Now is the time to learn more. Call Statler Financial at 863-877-1188, or you can text VISIT to 863-877-1188.
Advisory services offered through Second Half Financial Partners, LLC, a SEC registered investment advisor.
Time to retire right. This is the Statler Financial Radio Show.
Welcome back to Statler Financial Radio Show with Philip Statler. He is the founder and president of Statler Financial Services. Thank you for listening today. We appreciate that. Now, I've got a startling fact for you. Running out of money is the number one retirement fear for 58% of Americans across all generations, which is not an irrational fear. There's people living in their 90s and beyond, and your retirement could last 30 years or more. That's quite a while. 3 decades of groceries, healthcare costs, and life to fund without a paycheck. Philip, let's tackle this head on. What makes the risk of outliving your money so real in today's world? And probably more importantly, what can you do about it?
Well, Stephanie, I think if we look at the whole scenario about the fear of outliving money, it is true. It is a true fear. The people worry about that all the time. Even the people that have a lot of money worry about that one thing. So I think it's because longevity has become the foremost challenge out there. Just to give you a statistic, couples at age 65 have a 50% chance one of them lives to age 93. I know in my life, my parents are both still living. My dad's 88. My mom's 83.
Wow. Yeah.
My grandmother on my dad's side, she lived to be 100. My grandfather on my mom's side lived to be 90. I mean, there's a lot of longevity in the Statler side of the family. I mean, I got a lot here.
You better plan for a long life.
Exactly. So I think that as people live longer, it becomes a challenge. And so the new normal seems to be that we have this stubborn inflation. Folks don't have pensions, and we've still got taxes to pay. Unlike my parents who, have a pension, a lot of folks today, that's not going to be the case. They're not going to have a pension. And then so people often underestimate life expectancy. And so their planning reflects that. And that can be difficult. I mean, I meet with people all the time that say, my health is an issue. My brother didn't live past, 55. My dad didn't live past 68. So because of those things, I don't think I'm going to live very long. And so they underestimate how long they'll actually end up living. And so I think you have to plan for 30 plus years in retirement. And to do that, it requires some fundamental shift in our thinking. And that's really what we try to help folks do.
Let's talk about Social Security. Everyone seems to say delay until 70 for the maximum benefit, but I'm hearing that might not always be the right advice. What factors should people really consider when deciding when to claim?
So first, let's be real clear here. 70 gives you the maximum benefit, but that doesn't mean it's right for you. There's things we need to look at. I mean, you're right. Each year you delay past full retirement, which is 67 for most of us now. It's an 8% increase for every year you wait. So if you wait to 70, that's a 24% increase. I mean, nothing to sneeze at, right? And so that's one thing to consider. But you also have to look at health status, family longevity, need for income now, right? A lot of times health isn't good. So they need to get out of the workforce that they're in now. And the only way to do that is to start taking Social Security. Maybe it's not as early as 62. Maybe they're 65 and qualify for Medicare. That's a good time to kind of make that transition for a lot of folks. So that's an option. But you still have to look at things. Is that really the right time and the right way to do it? Delaying can help protect the surviving spouse's income. And I don't think enough people really focus on that when they're looking at retirement planning and Social Security planning, using it more as a death benefit for your surviving spouse, and then coordinating Social Security timing with retirement plan withdrawals. There's some things there that really can help you factor in when's the best time to start taking your Social Security.
If you have questions about any of this, call Philip 863-877-1188, 863-877-1188, and he'd be happy to sit down and talk to you about any questions you might have. You were talking about withdrawal strategies, Philip. The old 4% rule that everybody talks about, is that still relevant? And with people living longer and markets being unpredictable, how should retirees think about safely tapping their nest egg?
Well, there's been some different studies that have been done over the years, especially since 2008, when we had that last super huge bear market. And so things that have come out is that the 4% rule could be too rigid for modern retirement. It may be okay. It may not be enough. It may be too much. It depends on circumstances and which study you really go look at, because we've got what I call spending phases, right? When folks first retire, Stephanie, we call that the go-go stage, right?
Right.
We're just retired. We're excited. We've got our bucket list of things we want to get done. And so we're going, we got we go buy the new bass boat so we can go fishing all the time, or we go buy the RV because we're going to go from here to California and back. There's just a lot of things there. Then there's a slow go. That's kind of the next, 10, 15 years, somewhere in there, where you slow down, but you still want to go. You're still excited. You still want to go see grandkids and kids and those type of things. You want to do that cruise a couple times a year, but you slow down. It's not quite as exciting as it was. And then you got the no-go years. And that's just when, as one of my longtime clients had told me a long time ago in the tax business, when I would say, look, you got all this money. Why aren't you going someplace? Why aren't you doing things? He said, he's like 85 years old. He said, Philip, do you know what it takes for me to go? I got to pack up all my medications. I got all this stuff I got to pack up to go. And it just messes up my whole routine. It's not worth it anymore. And so that's the no-go years. So I think all of that to say that we need a holistic risk-based guardrails approach to those type of things. That's just another way of determining what our income could be and how much we can start to take. And I think the other thing we need to kind of plan for or look at is the need for lifetime income planning. We need to have a plan in place. And Stephanie, that's why I created the Core Retirement Design, to help people do that. And one of those segments in that whole planning process is the income plan. And the income plan lays out for everyone the income they could get year over year for the rest of their life, and making sure that they don't run out of money. Folks, to get started is easy. Give us a call at 863-877-1188. That's 863-877-1188 to schedule your core retirement analysis.
You were listening to the Statler Financial Radio Show with founder and president Philip Statler, and he's here to talk to you about your retirement, your nest egg, what you've saved. And if you would like a second opinion from Philip, you can definitely give him a call, 863-877-1188. Once again, just so you have it, 863-877-1188. And we really can't ignore the elephant in the room, taxes. Between taxes on retirement plan distributions and Social Security taxation, do I keep going on here? Taxes, they could take a huge bite out of retirement income. So, Philip, what suggestions do you have for people trying to navigate the tax thing?
Well, I think you have to have a plan in place. And that planning process can help you navigate the whole tax situation. Because we know, at least right now, for the next, I'm going to say 3 years, we know that we're going to be in pretty low tax rates, right? 25, we're going to be good. 26, 27, I think even 28, we're going to be okay. So we've got a few years to do some good tax planning, but you have to do it. If you don't put together a plan, if you put together a plan and you don't follow it, then it does you no good. So we need to put a plan in place to help navigate through the tax complexities and help put you in the lowest tax bracket possible, not just for you, but for you, your beneficiaries, your estate, everybody. Make sure that we're looking at the whole picture, not just this little segment right now.
You have covered so many critical pieces on the show today. For somebody who's thinking this feels overwhelming, I don't even know where to start, how do you help people create a comprehensive retirement plan that addresses all these moving parts?
Well, we start with some nuts and bolts, right? We start with what is our risk? What risk should you have based on your current circumstances, your risk tolerance, how long you have to retire, how old are you, all of those things. And then we measure that against your current portfolio. And typically, we find they just don't quite match up. A matter of fact, the other day, I was sitting with a guy that he wants to retire in the next 5 years. And we looked at his portfolio, and his portfolio is in the mid to high 70s. Well, his portfolio needs to be in about the mid 50s. So he's got too much risk in his portfolio for what he's trying to accomplish. And so we're able to help tweak that and get him on track for that retirement that he always dreamed of. And so I think that's the thing, is that we have to look at those things, and our core retirement design does that. We look at risk, and we make sure that the risk we take matches up with where we should be. We look at that tax planning process and making sure that we have some kind of tax plan in place, and we know where those tax dips may be that we don't want to have to experience. And then lastly, we put together the infamous income plan. You need to have an income plan in place, folks. And we've talked about all the time, less than 30% of the folks out there actually have one. Let's take the time. Let's put together an income plan so that you know where you are and that your money's going to last throughout your lifetime, given the income you're going to need. It's that simple, folks. It starts, though, with you and I on the phone for 30 minutes, answering your questions, making sure that we know where you are, and making sure that what you've done so far is going to get you where you want to go. What's the end goal? Can we get you there? It's as simple to start. Give us a call at 863-877-1188. That's 863-877-1188. I'd love to sit down with you, get you started on our core retirement design. That number one more time, 863-877-1188.
All right, stay tuned. In our next segment, we'll explore the flip side of running out of money in retirement, dying with too much of it, why some retirees end up leaving far more than they intended, and what you can do about it. The Statler Financial Radio Show will be right back.
Needing a second opinion on your retirement plan, or to see if you're paying more than your fair share to Uncle Sam? Schedule your complimentary visit today. Text VISIT to 863-877-1188. That's VISIT to 863-877-1188.
The market goes up, it goes down, but retirement keeps going. And when you're close to retirement, those swings can feel very different. At Statler Financial Services, our planning focuses on helping plans stay aligned through market movement, so short-term volatility doesn't disrupt your long-term plans. It's about balance, income planning, and staying disciplined through changing markets. Call or text VISIT to 863-877-1188 now for your free risk analysis from Philip Statler at Statler Financial Services. If you're nearing retirement or already there, now's the time to review your strategy. Take the first step. Get your questions answered before the next market volatility takes a chunk out of your portfolio. Call or text VISIT to 863-877-1188. That's VISIT to 863-877-1188. Advisory services offered through Second Half Financial Partners, LLC, a SEC registered investment advisor.
Welcome back to the Statler Financial Radio Show with founder and president Philip Statler right here in Sebring, Florida. Beautiful Sebring. So definitely give Philip a call if you have any questions about anything retirement. Here's something that might surprise you. Having enough money isn't always the problem. Many retirees have saved successfully their entire lives. They built up a substantial nest egg, and then they can't bring themselves to spend it. The psychological shift from building to using money. Philip, I can't even imagine having that problem. What are some of the problems that can arise when retirees don't make the adjustments needed when transitioning into retirement?
Well, I think that a lot of it is, let's look at it as a kind of a mountain climbing, right? We have to have different strategies for climbing up the mountain versus safely coming down the mountain. Stephanie, maybe you don't, but more people have accidents and die coming down the mountain than going up the mountain.
I didn't know that.
In mountain climbing accidents, yes, that is a fact. And so, but it is truly two different strategies when we look at investing. There's a strategy for growing your portfolio and accumulating money for retirement. That is a strategy. To switch buckets, to switch gears, once you retire, it is a different strategy, 180-degree turn in the way you invest and plan for retirement once you're there. And folks, there's a lot of people that never make that change. They keep going and they keep living like they're working. That is one of the biggest mistakes I see, is they don't change the way they approach their investments, or at least their advisor doesn't change the way they approach their investments. And they may say they're making a little bit less risky, but when you look at the numbers, it just doesn't add up right. The other thing that we run into is what we call the sequence of return risk. We don't know when the market's going to drop. We've had a pretty good run here over the last 5 to 10 years. We don't know when that's going to flip, and we start having losses instead of gains on a regular basis. So, sequence of return risk is a big deal, and we need to plan for it. Need for, again, a written spend down plan. And that's hard for people. I've got clients all the time that come in and they've got plenty of money, but it is so hard for them to spend it. I had a client that came in and she said, "Philip, I need a new car." You got plenty. Go pick whatever you want. Whatever you want, go get it. And she gets a little, I say little, a little Toyota Camry, which they're nice vehicles. And they do what they're supposed to do. Don't get me wrong. But she couldn't get herself to look at, a Lexus or a BMW or a Mercedes. That just wasn't in her wheelhouse because she didn't want to spend that much money, even though she had way more than she was ever going to use in her lifetime. So, that sounds like a simple, example, but I see it day in and day out, not just cars, but houses or, taking a trip or taking my grandkids on a trip. There's just all kinds of things that really applies to. But having something there so that we are spending the money we have. We don't want to overspend, but we don't want to underspend either, right?
Sure, there's kind of a happy medium in
That's right.
Yeah.
And so, some people, they have this die with zero philosophy, which is great, right? I'm going to die with nothing left. Well, it's kind of hard to plan that out exactly, because you don't want to miss right on the other side. You don't want to run out too soon. But you end up with money left over. And when it happens, you missed out on some experiences that you could have had.
Yeah, go have fun.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what retirement's about, enjoying the life that you worked hard to get to.
Now, certainly market volatility can hit retirees especially hard. It's one thing to watch your portfolio drop when you're still working and adding money. Entirely different thing when you're withdrawing from those declining amounts or accounts rather, to pay for groceries. So how do retirees overcome the fear of selling investments when markets are down?
Well, it comes down to really a couple things. One is we need to understand your risk tolerance before the crisis hits. I go back to 2008. I've got several examples there that I love to talk about. One is the moderate investor back then thought, as I say, they thought they were moderate investors, right? until their portfolio was down 15 to 20%. I mean, that's what the moderate investor lost in 2008. And they realized they really weren't a moderate investor. They were more of a conservative investor. And so you want to find that out before the crisis hits and not after. And so we do that by stress testing, various scenarios and various portfolios to see how that's all gonna land. Having a written plan in place and following it helps with the emotional decision-making process. And then creating buckets, right? We have a bucket for spending, near term, midterm, and then we have a long-term growth bucket. Helps out as well. One example I like to always use when we talk about this exact scenario is a retired doctor that came to see me, and a very wealthy man, and he was taking out back at the beginning before the crash, he was taking out about 5%, which honestly was a little rich for what he should have been taking out of his portfolio. But from, I think it was January of 2008 to December of 2008, he did not make any adjustments to the amount of money he was taking out of his portfolio.
Mm-hmm. What happened?
Well, his portfolio was cut in half in a year.
Oh my gosh.
So that's how losses, when you're taking money out, can really and truly explode. And so we want to have a plan for that. And that calls for some diversification between risk and safety. And that's really my point to that story. And that's really, I was able to help them. They didn't become clients of mine, but I was still able to help them see that they were taking too much money out of their portfolio. And he made some adjustments, which helped preserve their portfolio for the long term.
You can call Philip at Statler Financial, 863-877-1188. That's 863-877-1188. And how scary to have that cut in half. That is frightening. Doesn't all this even become more difficult, Philip, for married couples where they have to also plan for the future needs of surviving spouse?
It really does, Stephanie. The problem is, and that goes back to Social Security strategies in place. And one of the things that I look at when I'm doing Social Security planning for folks is optimizing the survivor benefit so that the remaining spouse can get the most Social Security benefit they can. A lot of times people have what we call single life pensions. And so that can be a shock when that person dies, because that money dies too. And so that can be devastating to a couple, to the surviving spouse, not to have that money there. And so we ask that question, right? When we're doing our planning process, does your pension have survivor benefits? And what are those survivor benefits? Because it may not be 100%. It may only be 50%. Or maybe zero, right? So we want to know what that is to help in the planning process. And you have to kind of model both scenarios, right? Because you don't know who's going to die. And maybe neither one of them die for a long time. Maybe they make it into their, late 80s or early 90s together. So there's all kinds of scenarios you have to run to determine how to develop that income plan to best not only take care of the couple, but then take care of the surviving spouse at the same time. So there are, some things you have to do to make sure that happens right. And then looking at joint survivor annuities, folks, that can help protect reducing the income. So that's an area that can help as well when it comes to that kinds of things. Folks, listen, it all comes down to planning. And that's what our core retirement design helps you to do. It helps you put a plan in place to make sure that the risk for you is where it needs to be, that we've got taxes to the least amount possible, and that we have an income plan in place so we know we won't run out of money in retirement. Give me a call. I'd love to spend 30 minutes with you on the phone. 863-877-1188. That's 863-877-1188.
There is a lot to consider, so don't be left in the dark and ask a lot of questions. Philip is there for you to do that and help answer them. 863-877-1188. You are listening to the Statler Financial Radio Show. Philip, what advice do you have for listeners who are maybe 5 to 10 years away from retirement and they realize they need to get serious about planning?
Well, and that's, that 5-year mark, you really do need to get serious about planning. 10 years isn't too early to start laying some foundations of what needs to happen and how it needs to happen. But you really do need to take that time and start putting a plan in place. Do I have enough to retire? At my current rate of savings, will I have enough to retire? Will it will it meet my cash flow need? That's the big question. And it's one of the questions you need to ask yourself, and you need to have a plan in place that's going to get you there. And that 5-year mark, folks, that's where you really need to get serious about planning. 10 years, it's nice if you can start that early, because especially if you're behind the curve, now here's how much money I really need to be saving to make sure that I can retire in 10 years. You don't want to get caught off guard and wait to that 5-year mark and figure out, oh, I'm really behind. That may be too late. You might have to work. You may have to work a little longer, Stephanie, and that's people don't want to do that.
No, not at all. And if you're 25 listening now, start saving now for sure.
Start now. I mean, start putting $25, $50 out of every paycheck. Start just putting it away and don't touch it. And that's a big deal. If you can put it in Roth IRAs, that's the way to do it. And put all you can in the Roth till you cap out, and then start putting it into a non-retirement account.
For a free visit, make sure you text VISIT to 863-877-1188. That's 863-877-1188. And get that free consultation with Philip Statler. The Statler Financial Radio Show. We'll be right back.
Many people don't plan for long-term care until they have to. But long-term care isn't just nursing homes. It can include in-home care, assisted living, or ongoing support over time, and those costs often aren't covered by Medicare. That's why Statler Financial Services helps clients plan ahead, looking at how long-term care fits into a broader retirement strategy. Planning ahead is not about expecting the worst. It's about understanding your options. Call Philip Statler at Statler Financial Services today at 863-877-1188. Philip and his team offer guidance to clarify your choices and cost before you need to act, no matter what life brings. Now is the time to learn more. Call Statler Financial at 863-877-1188, or you can text VISIT to 863-877-1188.
Advisory services offered through Second Half Financial Partners, LLC, a SEC registered investment advisor.
Welcome back to the Statler Financial Radio Show with Philip Statler is with me right now. Over 2 decades of experience in financial services. I think that's terrific. And we are kind of getting into the fun stuff here with the mailbag questions. I love these, Philip. These are a lot of fun and some really good questions from listeners as well. So let's go ahead and get started on this. Our first question is from Jean from Sebring. Jean asks, I'm still quite a few years away from retirement, but I have no idea what my savings target should be. How much might I need to save so I can have a comfortable retirement? That's a common question, isn't it? A lot of people are wondering that.
It is. It's a very common question. We talk about it a lot on the show, but it's the wrong question, right? So we need to look at it from a different perspective, because we don't know how much you need until we know how much you're going to spend, right? So the key is spending. What does your spending budget look like in retirement? And that's the key. And nobody likes a budget. I get that. I don't like it either.
Or it'd be word. Yeah.
That's right. Nobody likes that word. But you have to have an idea of what you're going to be spending in retirement. Whether that's, I need a new boat because I want to go fishing all the time, or, hey, I'm playing golf like it's my job. I have a client that did that, right? They played golf 5 days a week. That was their job. They took the weekends off. And so, so that's the first thing to look at is how much money am I going to need for spending on an annual basis? And once I get that number, then I can help you figure out how much you need to have in your bucket at retirement to pay for all the spending. So that's the key, Gene, is tell me how much you're going to need to spend on an annual basis.
All
But
right.
I can tell you what you might need to have saved for a comfortable retirement.
Our next question, Mike from Avon Park. Are rental properties a good source of income for my retirement?
They can be. I don't know if you've ever been a landlord before. I have.
No.
I hated it. I hated it.
Unless you include my 2 boys.
So I would say yes, they can, especially in today's marketplace where rentals in our community are short supply, meaning you can get a good rent. You can get good cash flow on your rental. But you have to ask, do you want to manage it? Do you want to pay somebody to manage it? Do you want to be a landlord? There's good and the bad, right? And from a tax standpoint, it can be really good. One of the issues that a lot of folks have is all their money's in an IRA. And the only way that I would say that it really makes sense today in the high interest rate environment we're in is you got to pay cash or mostly cash for that rental house, for the cash flow. So, so if everybody's money is sitting in a traditional IRA, then they got to pay the tax to go buy the property. And sometimes that just doesn't make sense because of the tax liability you're going to have in that process. So though rental property can provide good cash flow and it can provide some tax advantages, the downside is that we usually don't have the cash to pay for it. So, we end up with a mortgage and interest rates right now are pretty high. So that eats into our cash flow. And so that's kind of a negative. And then do you want to be a landlord? Do you want to pay somebody to be the landlord for you? Either way, it can be, fixing stuff back up after people move out. Like I said, I've done it. I don't think I'll do it again.
Seems like a lot of work.
So, it is a lot of work.
Do you want to retire to go enjoy life? And it just seems like so much work.
Hope that helps.
Appreciate that, Philip. We are listening to the Statler Financial Radio Show now. We'd love you to call Philip and ask him any kind of question you like, or you can even text the word visit to go talk to him and have your free consultation at 863-877-1188. That number again is 863-877-1188. And I love the fact that you are right here in Sebring, Florida, and people listening now, they're not listening to somebody across the United States. You're right here in their own backyard. And I have Jeff from Sebring wants to know, if I'm retiring in the next 5 years or so, is it more important to max out my contributions to my retirement accounts, or should I focus more on building up my emergency fund? Really good question.
That is a good question. So I think you have to look at it in 2 ways. If you cannot do both, ideally you should do both, right? You should max out your contributions to your retirement plan and build up your emergency fund. Now, the question is, how much do you think your emergency fund needs to be? My opinion, and my opinion only, is I think that in retirement, you should have an emergency fund of somewhere around 25,000, no more than 50,000. There's no reason to have more than $50,000 sitting in a bank account somewhere. So that's kind of my criteria that I look at. And so if you're not there yet, I would probably start splitting them, right? Splitting them from your retirement accounts, half of it into your emergency fund. And let's see in the next 5 years if we can't get to at least $25,000 in the emergency fund. Once you do, then you flip it, start putting everything in the retirement account so that you've got the most you need there. And then as a process, Jeff, of putting together an income plan to make sure that the amount you have in your retirement accounts is going to be enough to get you through retirement. And so that's, I think that would be a good goal to accomplish. If you can, next 5 years, end up with $25,000 in an emergency fund and put as much as you can into your retirement accounts, building both of them up would be beneficial for you to retire in the next 5 years. Now, I don't know how old you're going to be in 5 years, but the other thing that you need to look at is, when do you take Social Security? If you're not going to be 67 yet, then maybe we don't want to take our Social Security yet. I mean, that's another area of planning when we do our income planning, is looking at when should you take your Social Security? What does it look like if I wait? And looking at those key aspects of income planning process is making sure that we're using our money the best way possible. And Social Security is a big deal. It's a big part of our retirement income. And again, that's part of our core retirement design. The income plan portion is we look at the income planning, our pensions, our Social Security. How do those things all fit together to produce the income we're going to need in retirement? To get started, it's a simple phone call. Give us a call at 863-877-1188. That's 863-877-1188. I'd love to spend 30 minutes with you on the phone, making sure you're making the right choices when it comes to your retirement. That number one more time, 863-877-1188.
So after that initial conversation on the phone, and if they do decide to become a client, or if they just want to come in and visit a little more with you, what do they expect? What can folks expect when they come and talk to you?
So after the phone call, if it looks like there's some way or somehow we can help them, then we'll have them come in and go through our core retirement design process. And the first part of that process is a project where we put together a risk assessment of their current portfolio. We put together a tax plan to make sure that we can convert things to a Roth IRA, and making sure that we're being very conservative on our numbers to make sure that we make that conversion and pay the least amount of taxes possible. And then the third leg is putting together that income plan. So we put together an income plan that says, hey, look, here, based on where you are today, here's how much money it looks like you should be able to take out or have to spend, including your Social Security and your pension. Here's the number that you should be able to spend in retirement. And that gives you that confidence to know that you're not going to run out of money and be in good shape throughout retirement.
All right. Well, hey, I appreciate it. And it was great talking to you today, Philip. Thank you so much.
All right, Stephanie, thank you very much. And I look forward to next week.
Sounds good. And don't forget, you could give him a call, 863-877-1188. That's 863-877-1188. Thanks again. And we will talk to you next week on the Statler Financial Radio Show.
Advisory services offered through Second Half Financial Partners, LLC, a SEC-registered investment advisor. The opinions voiced and information provided in this material are for general informational purposes only and are not intended to provide specific advice or recommendations for any individual. To determine what investments are appropriate for you, please consult with a financial advisor. Second Half Financial Partners, LLC does not provide tax or legal advice. Please consult your tax or legal advisor regarding your particular situation. This radio show is a paid placement.